Tuesday, and welcome to the morning after, where we are discussing episode 9 of Rachel's season of The Bachelorette. That episode felt long to me. I don't know about you guys. It just sort of felt, maybe it's because they were meeting her family, it just sort of felt like, and then they went to Spain, it just sort of felt long. Also, something about when we're this far along and no one gets eliminated, it just feels very like, I'm like, ugh, I get a little impatient. Not that I want people to go, I just feel like, okay, you know, let's get to the end. Alright, so I'm gonna go in chronological order, as I always do. I loved how at the beginning of this, Rachel pointed out the difference of format, and she said, normally you guys are separated at this point. I loved this, and it was sort of painful to watch the poor guys. They had to, like, you know, live together in a hotel again. I think they were living together and forced to have man chats every day. It just seemed a little rough. And I just like that she pointed that out. I thought it was a good breaking of the fourth wall. Okay, so yeah, Peter. So Peter goes to meet Rachel's family, and he makes a big point of stopping her and being like, by the way, I feel like we left things off on a weird note. I am in love with you, or I am falling in love with you. This felt, especially with how we see how the episode goes, like, so in retrospect I can say this, but it felt a little forced, and I wrote down that it felt forced. It felt on cue to me, like he had been talking about his feelings with the producer, and it was like, oh, I wasn't, you know, he wasn't sure if he was going to get a rose at the last rose ceremony, so he really wanted to make sure that she knew that he really liked her. It just felt like too much and unnecessary. But man, I wrote, is he good with the family. He's very effusive and eloquent. And I still, though, wish that we saw more from his body language towards her. Like, he'll say, like, I am falling in love with you, but it's still a very, like, formal thing. I get that. I am also a little like that, but I feel this far along, if he's really to be taken seriously as a potential, if he's supposed to be seen as proposing to her, which we now know might not happen, I'm just not buying the body language. Okay, Eric. I love Eric. I feel like we've watched him grow. Like, we've watched a human, like, develop on this show. And I also feel like he even smiles more than he did in the beginning, or his smile is just, like, broader and more confident. And I also love how honest he is. I said that, he's very honest with the information about his upbringing, no matter how unflattering it is, especially to her family, which is clearly a very tight-knit family. She was, you know, had very good examples of love around her, and he was not afraid to talk about how he didn't have that, and how he never saw his parents together, how half his family's on this, on the streets in some way or another. I just thought it was, I really respected that, especially given that her family are the kind of people that would recognize that honesty and not just hold the facts against him. So Eric is just great. I like Eric a lot. Okay, Brian. I said we knew it was going to go poorly for Brian when we were shown multiple shots of him saying, I think they're going to be impressed. Like, he seemed very confident. Bordering on cocky. I don't want to say cocky, but he just seemed very confident. And so you know, especially based on the previews too, that it's just not going to go as well for him as he would like. I felt for Rachel. It felt a bit like the family was ganging up on him, and they were really using his use of the word love against him. And you could totally see where her skeptic, cynic, pragmatic side comes from. Like, she obviously inherited it from her family, so I get that. But I do feel like the use of love is a cultural thing. Like, I use the word love a lot. I say, I love my girlfriends. I'll love a slice of cheesecake. So I feel like it should not be used against him as much. However, I did not think it was wise for him to say he loved the family to her sister like an hour after meeting them, because I think that diluted his, the gravity of his love, or the use of his love. That said, I do believe him. I do believe he really loves her, and I think he just uses the word love very casually. And I don't think that should really be used against him. But yeah, they definitely ganged up on him. It ended up working out for him in the end. Okay, Spain. We go to Rioja. See, this is a long episode. There's a lot to cover. Okay, Eric in Spain. I talked about this in my Flare recap, but I felt a bit like it went back a step for me. Yes, they talked about how much they grow in each time spent together, but it felt like he stumbled when she asked him specific questions regarding emotions. So one question she asked him was, oh, after I spent time with your family and you spent time with my family, what did you learn about me? And I felt like that was an opportunity to be that, you can really handle yourself under pressure, or you can, something specific to those circumstances. And his response was that she was strong and independent, which to me are more general statements about her and not something he would have learned in that situation, or he would have already known that about her. I didn't think that, I felt like a stock answer. So even if it were sincere, it just felt like he wasn't on the same level as her in terms of being able to articulate his feelings and emotions. Peter in Spain. I respect that he holds his ground with the engagement thing, but I have an issue with the body language here. His body language while she's crying, she's and he's just sort of patting her arm like a friend would. It was just dude, you, either meet in the middle or feel worse about it. I don't know. Again, if we're supposed to believe that he's proposing to her, he didn't seem as upset and the previews showed him maybe shedding a tear or two, so there's that. But yeah, I talk all about the proposal thing, proposing versus not proposing, in my Flair recap. Okay, so I will get to your questions. First is at Cher Rolled. I think I'm saying that right. Do you think Eric has any chance of making it to the final two? Any is in all caps. I say this in my Flair recap. I really like Eric. I just, at this point, I just don't see it being at the same level. I feel like if Eric is going to make final two, it's by default of Peter leaving. I could be wrong about this. I have no idea. I actually don't know the spoilers for this, so I don't know. I feel like if he's going to make final two, it's only because Peter leaves. Or maybe if Rachel, out of spite, sets Peter home, which I just don't see happening. I think Eric's going home next. Chloe Silver asks, what do I think about Brian's eagerness to commit? Do I feel like he is sincere? I do. I know not everyone agrees with me on this, but I really do believe Brian in his eagerness to commit to her, in that it is sincere and that he's ready and all those things. I just think that the fact that he is smooth and good with women should not be held against him. And of course, I'm saying this because I'm biased. If you've been reading my Pretty Pandas recaps, you know that I'm basing this on my own personal experience, and because there's a lot of similarities between Brian and Andy, and I believe him. Sorry. At Joni Sharkey asks, last night Ali Fedotowsky tweeted her support for Peter for not rushing into anything. Do you agree this is a good thing? Okay. Again, I talked about this in my Flair recap, so I don't want to go too in depth, but yes, of course, it makes complete sense to not be rushed into an engagement and then having the pressure of that looming over you as you try to navigate real life together. That said, the aftermath of filming is not real life, and I think it's extremely hard on contestants. And I don't think Rachel is unreasonable in wanting a proposal, given the tradition of the show and how ready she is, and how she obviously is not. She's not the kind of girl who's a hard time finding a boyfriend in real life. She wants commitment, and she's made that very clear from night one. My main issue with the Peter Rachel thing is that if she were to give in to needing an engagement, it's a concession on her part, and I already feel like their relationship is very not on equal playing fields. I've felt like he's been in a position of power for most of the season, and she's been sort of a little more into him, or seems more into him, or at least is willing to express that more. And so that's my main issue, is that if she gives in and is like, oh, I don't need a proposal from you, that he's once again in the driver's seat, as he has been all this time, and that it's just not starting off at a level playing field. So that for me, it's a power dynamic thing. I don't think he's unreasonable. It would be reasonable if she agreed, which she doesn't. So that's my issue with it. Although I don't think it matters because I think she's picking Brian, as you all know. Okay, so that's it for the morning after. Be sure to read my Flare recap, which is coming out any second, and my Pretty Pandas recap, which will come out later this week. Thank you for tuning in and listening to me ramble. This is a long one, and I will see you next week. It is Men Tell All, one of my favorites. So yes, I will see you next week. Bye.